Only 7% of the milk that we produce in the world is internationally traded, which cross the boundary. 93% of the milk remains the domestic terrain, and therefore, if you see that it is also likely to decline to 6% in time to come, and therefore, dairy industry is not at all global, it is local in nature, it is or at the most regional. I'll come to you. In case even if we go internationally, it is not beyond the international geographical regions. What has happened is the opening up of the market which has taken place, in the last few decades, or rather, there are various enabling factors, the means of transport, communication, and more importantly in the international trade is the emergence of WTO, wherein more and more markets have opened up. Now, what we are seeing is very important trend which we have seen in the last decade is the international trade is growing at the rate of 3% in the dairy, whereas the production is growing at 2%. Trade surpasses the total production in the dairy industry, and this makes international trade extremely significant. And there is a increasing integration of the global production patterns and the markets. And therefore, what we are witnessing is that the international dairy markets have witnessed a paradigm shift from being supply driven to become demand driven. And these markets are getting increasingly responsive to the market signals and the customer preferences rather than by the excess production and the depressed prices which change. What has also happened over the recent years, dairy industry traditionally being dominated by the Western countries. America had long been largest milk producer. Most European countries, say Germany, France, even the UK have been largest producers. What we studied 30 years back was something which was followed in the West. And the dairy markets across the world were controlled by the West and America. The trend is changing very, very significantly. And this is, what we are showing is that in time to come, the significance of the developed market is likely to further diminish. And therefore, the role of the countries like India, if you see that the growth which has been almost, the 73%, the major share is 73% share is coming from the developing countries. India and China accounting for about 38% share in the growth in the dairy sector. So we play a very, very dominant role in time to come in the dairy markets. Another thing, if you see that the work milk production is projected to increase at an average of 1.9% during the next decade, compared to the 2.1 in the previous one. And if you see that this is that 73% of the additional milk production in the next decade is likely to come from the developing countries, and wherein the India and China plays a dominant role. So we need to be prepared for time to come, and this is what the agenda of the workshop or our session was. Despite, under the WTO regime, all developed countries are looking India as a big market. Almost in everything, and dairy is one. You have seen, but their level of protectionism in their markets still remains very high. Now, this I think this is the cross-country comparison of the import tariffs in different countries. These are the 2011 very recent figures. If you look at, the Canada has got an applied tariff of 126%. Japan has import tariff of 93%. European Union 48%. US. Now, India only 33%. If you look into the import tariff in the developed countries, it still remains very restrictive. Agriculture has been a major contentious issue in the whole Doha round. The government of India and the other developed countries, we spend millions of rupees in carrying out research, and big scientists and economists have worked for years together to find out and to market to the people how agreement on agriculture is going to benefit us. But the real fact remains that United States of America fulfilled all its WTO commitment under the agreement of agriculture by actually increasing in absolute terms the total subsidy that they give on the agriculture, including the dairy. Reducing only technically. And I think it's extremely important for us to know the nuances of the trade, the nuances of the protection. These are only the tariff barriers. But let me talk of the non-tariff barriers, which I can talk on a separate forum. But to give you only thing, that EU has come out with a legislation that one has to write any product which has been frozen ever. It includes the cheese and butter which gets frozen. Denmark has imposed an obesity test on the saturated fats. Now milk, butter and most dairy products falls under the saturated fat category, wherein additional tax is being imposed. So, these are some of the international things which you need to look into.